Today is July the 16th, 2012. My name is Tim Blevins. I would like to cover a topic that I am calling Agape versus Phileo, Farce Masquerading as Scholarship. Agape versus Phileo, Farce Masquerading as Scholarship. Recently, a friend of mine and I were on Broad Street in Rome, Georgia, passing out some gospel tracts and witnessing. This young lady walked by and we were talking with her about her relationship with God, trying to explain to her her need of salvation through Jesus Christ. And she proudly showed us her arm on which was a tattoo that said Agape. And she looked at me and she said, "Do you know what that means?" And she was expecting me to be totally ignorant about what that word means. And I said, "Yes, I know what agape means. That's the Greek word that means love." And she was very surprised that I knew that. I mentioned that by way of introduction, and I think you'll understand why I mentioned that as I get into this topic. I believe that there is a perfect Bible that I can hold in my hands, and this Bible is the authorized version of 1611, the Bible commonly called the King James Version or the King James Bible. I realize that those of us who hold this view are many times viewed as being grossly ignorant. We are viewed as being backward, old-fashioned, deluded, and even mentally challenged. Critics of the King James only view are many times loyal to the supposed original manuscripts of the Bible, or possibly they are loyal to the original languages of the Bible, Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. For ease of communication, in this session, I'm going to refer to these critics as Greek loyalists. Greek loyalists. The typical Greek loyalist does his New Testament Bible study in the following manner by these three steps. Step number one, he will read the passage from several English versions of the Bible. Step two, he will then choose whatever version or versions he likes best from what he has read. And step three, he will gain further, quote, insight into word meanings by looking up Greek root words and their supposed meanings from certain reference sources. Sources such as the dictionary in the back of a Strong's Concordance, or Vine's Expository Dictionary of New Testament Words, or Thayer's Lexicon, or any other number of reference works that are available. So those are the three steps that this typical Greek loyalist will do in his New Testament Bible study. Once these three steps are completed, the Greek loyalist is then educated and armed to teach people the profound information he has uncovered from the so-called nuggets from the original Greek. Anyone who can read English is capable of following this method. No knowledge of Greek is even needed. Pupils and listeners are impressed and awed to learn that the English word such and such is translated from the Greek word such and such, and that the word in Greek actually means, quote, to continually and something or whatever. All of us Christians have sat under this type of teaching, and for some of us, this method is or has been our method of study and teaching. I think it is fair to say that the majority of conservative Christendom today, 2012, views this method as the best method of learning and communicating New Testament biblical truth. Probably the most common scriptural passage that is taught using this method is John chapter 21, verses 15 through 17. This John 21 passage is the classic Agape Phileo passage of the Bible. Linguists tell us that Koine Greek has at least three different root words for the one English word love. These three Greek words are agape, phileo, and eros. Though agape and phileo are found in Greek manuscripts of the New Testament, we are told that eros, sexual love, is not found in those manuscripts. The popular and common teaching in Christianity is that agape is the God kind of love. That's what we're taught, that agape is the God kind of love, and this love is unconditional, it's self-sacrificing, it's based totally on the beneficent kindness of the one doing the loving, rather than on any value in the one that is being loved, etc. That's what we are taught about agape. Phileo, we are taught, is simply a brotherly kind of love, a friendship kind of love that is apparently somewhat lesser in intensity or value than agape. The passage in John chapter 21 is Jesus' conversation with Simon Peter, in which Jesus, 3 different times, asks Peter the question, "Lovest thou me?" Each time, Peter answered, "I love thee." The Greek loyalist has learned that the supporting Greek words enable us to see the conversation between Jesus and Peter as follows. So this is what the Greek loyalist has learned, that the conversation went like this. Jesus said, "Do you love me? Do you agape me?" Peter said, "I love Phileo you." Jesus said, "Do you love agape me?" Peter replied, "I love Phileo you." Jesus asked, "Do you love Phileo me?" Peter said, "I love Phileo you." So notice, the Greek loyalist explains to us that the first 2 questions asked by Jesus used the word agape in Greek, but Jesus' third question, he switched to the word phileo, the same Greek word that Peter used all 3 times in Peter's answer. The typical Greek loyalist proceeds to expound the passage by explaining that the passage should be paraphrased as follows. And here's the paraphrase of what the passage really means according to the Greek loyalist. Jesus said, "Peter, do you love or agape me deeply and unconditionally with the God kind of love, agape?" And Peter replied, "Jesus, I do love phileo you, but only with a brotherly friendship kind of love, which is phileo." Jesus then asked, "Peter, do you love agape me deeply and unconditionally with the God kind of love, agape?" And Peter said, "As I already said, Jesus, I do love phileo you, but my love, phileo for you, is only the brotherly friendship kind of love, which is phileo." Jesus then said, "Okay, Peter, do you love phileo me? Do you phileo me with a brotherly friendship love, which is phileo?" And Peter said, "Yes, Jesus, that's the kind of love, that phileo love, with which I love you, phileo." At least 2 serious students of Holy Scripture have discovered that the above interpretation of agape versus phileo is absolutely incorrect. I'd like to repeat that. According to my own research, I have discovered that at least 2 serious students, and their names are Samuel Gipp and Kyle Stevens, at least 2 serious students of Holy Scripture have discovered that the above interpretation of agape versus phileo is absolutely incorrect. These 2 authors have taken the time to look up each New Testament reference to agape versus phileo, and their simple research shows beyond a shadow of a doubt that agape and phileo are simply synonyms. They are simply synonyms. And that agape and phileo are not words with different meanings. A listing of the details of the research of these two authors is beyond the scope of this session, so I encourage you, the listener, to read those details for yourselves, and you can find those details in a couple of books that I'm going to hold up in just a moment. If you do so, if you look up those details yourself, you will be convinced of the following three conclusions that are outlined by Kyle Stevens. Number one conclusion: mainline and often fundamentalist Christian definitions of agape and phileo are inconsistent and contradictory to their true Bible meanings. Conclusion number two by Stevens: the Greek agape and phileo of the New Testament mean the same thing. They're synonyms. Conclusion number three by Stevens: the definitions of agape and phileo as represented in the mainline Christian material are man-generated, not scripture generated. Christians have been and are being duped by Greek loyalists, though many of these false teachers have innocent and pure motives, and these false teachers are simply repeating and regurgitating teachings which they themselves have heard and with which they have been brainwashed themselves. Christians need to reconsider the possibility that maybe there is a Bible out there somewhere that God has been preserving and protecting, one that we can hold in our hands, one that we can read and study and apply. God has indeed been safeguarding His written word, and this word exists in our day as the authorized version of 1611. Dr. Samuel Gipp's book, The Answer Book. Here it is. Copyright 1989, pages 127 to 131. The book by Kyle Stevens, entitled The Certainty of the Words, copyright 2012, pages 69 through 111. God bless you.